The goal for this video is that this becomes a resource for ministers to be able to know how to navigate a difficult conversation on cohabitation, or if you're cohabiting, that maybe a minister has sent you to this link just to say, hey, I want you to consider the thoughts and the information that's in this video as you think about your life moving ahead and what it is that you need to do. Now, Pew Research ran a study back in 2019, just last year, that talked about cohabiting couples and some of the increase in cohabitation that's taken place over the last few years. They looked at the numbers in 2012 and found an increase between 2012 and 2017 in cohabiting couples. It actually flip-flopped. In 2012, the number of people who had been married in their lifetime was higher than the number of people who had been cohabiting. By 2017, that number had actually flip-flopped. There had now been more cohabiting couples than there had been people who had actually been married. And so that's a trend that is just on the increase. There was another study done where women between the ages of 19 and 44 had an 82% increase in cohabitation over 23 years. Okay, that's a recent study. So cohabitation is on the increase. It's something we're going to be seeing a lot more of, and it's something that we're going to have a conversation about biblically and psychologically, sociologically, and statistically. Like, what are the odds? How do things work out? And is this really a good idea overall for people to be engaging in? It's really important that we consider the ramifications of our actions. It's very, very important that we set up our marriages for success. And so as this issue becomes more and more and more, we have to really look at the research and understand, both biblically but also the numbers, to say, like, what are the outcomes here, and is this even something that we should even be considering in the first place? Because if you're getting married, you want to have a good marriage. And what people are finding more and more in the studies, there have been some recent studies that have really questioned the idea about whether or not cohabitation has a negative effect on marriage. But what they've found, the more they've dug into the numbers over the last 10 years or so, as even cultural ideas have changed toward cohabitation, as the idea about cohabitation becoming more open, less problematic culturally speaking, more acceptable, what they found is that in the first year of marriage, that cohabiting couples don't tend to have any worse outcomes than non-cohabiting couples. And the idea is that you've already made the adjustments that have needed to be made to take two households and blend it into one. There's less adjustment when you get married than if you have two households coming into one household. So in year one, cohabiting couples actually have as good, or if not better, statistics on their odds of marriage, divorce numbers in the first year of marriage. But none of us just want to be married for a year. Once you look past that first year, cohabiting couples actually have a higher divorce rate and lower marital satisfaction than couples who did not cohabitate. And how do you navigate this conversation with someone? And here's the first thing. I really want to build rapport with someone. And so as I'm talking with someone, if I don't know them quite as well, if I don't have as much rapport with them, this is typically something I find out earlier in the counseling, maybe in the first couple of weeks, to kind of get to know them and find out what their situation is. But when they bring this up, this is not something I engage on the spot. If I don't have the rapport, if I don't have the capital, the relational capital with this person, with this couple, this is not something I bring up until week 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 down the road in the premarital counseling, because I want them to know that I genuinely care and that I'm on the side of their marriage. Once I feel like I've gotten to that point of building that rapport, laying a biblical foundation for marriage, talking about household chores and duties and responsibilities and expectations in marriage and all the things we talk about in premarital counseling, I finally will bring back up this conversation that we had had weeks prior about their living situation. And I will say to them something like this. You know, when we first started talking, you had brought up the fact that you guys are living together, that you're cohabiting. And I want to talk about that today. It's been something that's been on my mind for a few weeks, and it's something that I haven't brought up until this point, because I really want you to know, before we have this conversation, that I deeply care about you and your marriage. And if you'll think back to the very first week that we spoke, I laid down a very important and clear principle for me in this counseling, and that is that I am not on your side, and I'm not on your side. I'm on the side of your marriage. In the South, we'd say I'm on y'all's side, that I am for you, plural. And so because of that, there are some conversations that we have to have that are difficult conversations, but they're needed conversations. If there was something that I knew would profoundly impact your marriage, was most likely to profoundly impact your marriage, for me to fail to bring that up would be a failure on my part. Now, I'm a little uncomfortable in having this conversation because it's not a comfortable conversation, but it's a needed conversation. And so let me go ahead and talk to you about what that is. You talked about earlier in the counseling about the fact that you two are living together. And this really is a concerning part, because not only biblically, which we'll talk about, but even just statistically, socially, sociologically, psychologically speaking, the odds of your marriage having high marital satisfaction and making it, as in not having a divorce, you actually have far worse odds with this. And so because I'm on the side of your marriage, this is something that we really, really need to talk about, but it's not easy for me to bring up and not something I enjoy talking about. Now, about this time, the man is going to look at me with an evil eye. He may look like he wants to punch me in the face. He may look like he wants to walk out of the room, but I'll say, if you'll just stick with me, I hope by now, after all these conversations that you've had, that you trust me and that you know I'm on your side. I just want you to hear me through, and then you can make your own decision. You're adults. You just need to be informed, because what society tells us is that if you test drive a marriage, you're going to have better odds of success. But that doesn't actually work out in reality. The reality of the situation is that cohabiting couples actually have less marital satisfaction and higher divorce rates. Here's why I think that's the case. First of all, if you are living with someone who you really think, if you had been apart, you would come to the conclusion that this hadn't worked out, walking away would be a lot easier. But the fact that you're living together makes it a lot more likely that you're going to end up marrying someone who's not ideal, because you've already invested so much in the process. It's a lot harder to walk away when you're cohabiting than when you're living separate, and you can just break up and just move on. So your likelihood of marrying someone who is not really a fit for you is increased with cohabitation. You need that separation in order to understand something. And here's what is the most important piece on this to me, is that in your current living situation, you have already demonstrated the fact that you are willing to live with and sleep with someone who is not your spouse, someone who you have not made covenant, marriage, commitments, and promises to before friends, family, and God. You have no covenant commitment with this person, and you're willing to sleep with them. Now, right now, you're cool with it because it's you and you. But think about this. If 5 years from now, one of you came to me and you said, he has slept with another woman, or she has slept with another guy, and given this conversation and knowing that there's been cohabitation, I unfortunately would have to say to you, I guess I'm really not that surprised, because the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, and you've already demonstrated a willingness to cross over boundaries, to have inappropriate boundaries with people in a sexual way, to sleep with those you're not married with because you're doing it with each other. And so that makes the odds of future problems higher. And so the next question is, even biblically, Jesus says, the Old Testament also says, that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that what God has joined together, let no man separate. Marriage is for life. Our sexual purity is reserved for the covenant of marriage, not for anyone else. And so, biblically speaking, we talk about this being sexual immorality. This is a sin. To sleep with those we're not married with is a sin. So right now, in a cohabiting environment, a cohabiting relationship, there is sexual sin that's involved with that. For me as a minister to not bring that up and address that would be a problem on my part. But again, I wait to this point in our relationship and our connection so that you feel comfortable with me bringing these up, that you will know where I'm coming from, and that I love you, and that you can trust me, that I'm really trying to give you the best information and advice that I can possibly give you. Now, what you do with that is completely up to you. You can't unscramble eggs, you can't fix the past, but where do you go from here? And my advice to you is this: to have a physical and sexual separation, I mean, as far as a living situation and a sexual situation, separation from an agreed upon point, which could be this moment, it could be today, but an agreed upon point until the day of your marriage. And what that does is it reestablishes healthy personal and sexual boundaries within your marriage, the future marriage that you're going to have. That you walked into that marriage showing a distinction between the day of your marriage, that we have not been together, that we have not been sexually active, to the day of your marriage and after your marriage, that something has changed. Our living situation has changed. Our sexual connection has changed. That there is a distinct change in your life because there's a new boundary that's been set up. That it was you, and now the two, as the Bible says, have been made into one flesh. And that is a personal and sexual, spiritual boundary that you're putting around your couplehood, that you're putting around the two of you as a new couple, as one being in the flesh. And what that does is, as you bind together in that way, having shown separation and having been shown healthy, strong sexual boundaries, you are establishing the fact that you are people of principle and morality, that you do not on principle and on biblical principles sleep with someone who you're not married with. If you can establish that fact today, and you can walk into your marriage showing that clear distinction and the joining of two people into a new set of boundaries between now you as a couple and the world, that you are demonstrating your desire to have a healthy relationship, a healthy sexual relationship, and that will pay dividends for years to come. It should increase your marital satisfaction, it should decrease your divorce rate, and set you on a better path for the future. You can't fix the past, you can change the future. The decision is completely yours. I'm going to love you either way, although I may not agree with all your decision making. I don't even agree with all my own decision making, but I really believe that you want a healthy, long-lasting marriage, and I'm explaining and communicating to you the reason and rationale why your current situation is not one that lends itself to the goals that you have set for your marriage. I hope you've heard me with clarity. I hope you've heard me through love, and I hope you've heard me through respect. And again, my prayer for you is for a long-lasting marriage with high marital satisfaction, that you will just love being with each other, living with each other, sleeping with each other for many, many years to come, and that you're not doing things today that you had no idea were undermining your future marriage. Because again, the common ideology, the common thought, the common philosophy of things is that how you're doing it right now is the way to do it, and that you would have better satisfaction, that you have a better chance of sustaining your marriage, not divorce. It's just not true. It's just never held up in the research, and again, it's not God's plan, it's not God's desire, it's not biblical. And so that is my admonition, that is my encouragement, that is the information that I like to present to you. And so I hope, if you're a minister, I hope this is beneficial for you to think through some of those issues. I'm going to provide some links in the description that will give you some more information on this. And this is, again, not even just biblical Christian sources. This is secular research that we're talking about that really demonstrate the fact that that the outcomes are poor. And so point people to these things. Share these links with them. If you're a couple who's about to get married and someone's pointing you to this video, I hope that this has encouraged you to do the right thing now so that you will have the best of days ahead of you. Don't cheat your future for trying to have some excitement in the present. Put those things off so that you can have a better future. And God bless. And I'm praying for the marriages of the people who are watching this, the engagement of the people who are watching this, that this video, that this information will truly help bless even just one couple, two couples, three couples. And so thanks for watching this. If it's been helpful to you, click that subscribe button. And God bless you. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.